Alright, so today I'd like to continue talking about where I left off last time, and it's how can you bring the mountains to your house. And this is actually really interesting because you can actually mimic and obtain the training effect that you would get using high altitude or high intensity interval training by simply doing breath holds. And you can actually measure this using something called a pulse oximeter. And you can actually buy one, it's very cheap. And the reason why you want to do it is because as you do the breath holds, what's going to happen is your oxygen saturation will actually drop. And so, in fact, it can drop, right, as low as even 80%, right? Normal being 95 to 99. And so make sure it doesn't drop too much, of course. But an indication that you're doing these breath holds exercises is if it goes to 94 or below for the oxygen saturation. And of course you want to start off gently, not overdoing it either. But I'm going to give you today a very simple exercise that you can do, and you can actually incorporate it into a walk, into a run, into a jog, even into a bike ride. And so let's get right at it. So what you do is you want to literally go to something called the medium air hunger. So you don't want to over push yourself for the first 2 to 3 breaths. So you just want the medium air hunger. And for the remaining ones, because I'll make you hold the breath multiple times, so you're gonna do many reps. So for the first 2 to 3 reps, you want the medium air hunger. And for subsequent reps, you can challenge yourself and go to a relatively strong air hunger. Don't overdo it, but you want to challenge yourself in the subsequent repetitions. Now, you want to minimize the breathing to around 15 seconds after every breath hold via the nose. So you want to take short nasal breaths because oxygen saturation tends to drop after a breath hold. So you want to do that recovery breath, if you will. So, and ideally, you should recover within 3 to 4 breaths. So that 15 seconds is around 3 breaths, let's say. And you want to make sure you recover at that time. If you can't recover within 3 to 4 breaths, that means you're holding your breath for way too long. You have such a big air hunger that you can't recover within that time. So you want to recover. You want to recover within 3 to 4 breaths after a breath hold, which is about 15. Well, it's about 15 seconds because you're taking short breaths through the nose for a recovery. Okay, after the breath holds. So what you do is you simply walk. So we'll start with walking. So you walk for a minute at your regular pace. By the way, walking is such a great exercise. I hope everyone gets 30 minutes of physical activity every day, which I'm sure everybody is. So much studies have been linked to the health benefits. But now we're adding to that benefit. So you get a bigger training effect from walking by adding an extra load to it to mimic high intensity training and to mimic you actually getting a sweat, right? By simply doing this breath hold. It's challenging, and I would recommend you to do it, and you can actually treat it as a high intensity interval training because you get the same benefits. So it wouldn't be like your morning, maybe not your morning leisurely walk. It would be, unless you're doing your high intensity training in the morning, which is fine. But this is like a more intense training that you can mimic using breath holds. So I think we should all get around around 90 minutes of more intense kind of exercise, right, each week. So it's definitely good to mimic high intensity interval training. So what you do is after a minute of walking, you want to exhale and you literally pinch your nose, and then you breath hold until you get a medium to strong air hunger. And then you release the breath and breathe normally for 15 seconds via the nose to recover and to return to normal breathing. And then you walk for 30 seconds, right? So you walk for 30 seconds and again pinch your nose. So exhale, pinch your nose, and then repeat, right? So hold your breath for as much as you can and recover for 15 seconds. Then again, walk for like 30 seconds to a minute, pinch, hold your breath, and recover for 15 seconds. And you want to do that for 8 to 10 times, and the entire exercise will be around 12 minutes in length. So literally from between 10 to 15 minutes, you're able to mimic this high intensity interval training, which is not so bad. Now you can increase your paces that you hold your breath for over time, right? And what you're gonna notice, actually, this is really, really cool, is as you do these exercises, your neck and your abdomen are gonna start to tense and contract. In fact, you're gonna get some spasms. And this is actually a good workout for your diaphragm because it contracts. It like a spasm, it contracts during this workout. So your diaphragm, your breathing muscle gets a good workout. And as you do that, it's very important to focus on relaxing your body as you get those spasms, for example. And it actually can be meditative in nature as well if you do that. Feel relaxation as you do this breath hold exercise. And if your pulse goes up so much for a prolonged period of time after, then you probably want to not do this exercise and just do light breathing through the nose, which are good as well and will have all the benefits like nitric oxide production, etc., etc. Okay? Now, you can of course do this exercise not only when you walk, as I mentioned, but also when you jog, run, or bike ride. So to do this, for example, when you jog, you can literally jog for 10 to 15 minutes to warm up, and then you can hold your breath until you get a medium to strong air hunger, and then recover, recover, for example. But in this case, 15 seconds would not be enough to recover. You probably need around a minute to recover via short nasal breaths, and then repeat for 8 to 10 repetitions, just like we had previously. Okay, so the only difference between jogging and running and walking is that for jogging and running, you want to first warm up for longer, around 10 to 15 minutes, and your recovery should also be longer because you need longer time to recover after running, for example, than after walking. So although 15 seconds may be enough for walking, you probably want to hold it up to a minute when you're running, for example. You can even do it when you're bike pedaling too. How cool. For example, you can hold your breaths. So first you warm up, like always, and then you hold your breath for 5 to 15 pedals after you held your breath. And then again, you can nasal breathe for like a minute and then repeat for 8 to 10 times. And you can do this also with my favorite sport, and that is swimming. And so in swimming, your head is under the water, and your weight of the body actually on the water actually restricts the breathing. So you get an extra load and even an extra training effect. And Taumina actually did 1.5 kilometers fastest swim in the Sydney Games of 2000. And Patrick McCown talks about it in his book. And she was so good, she got the fastest run because she was actually practicing with these breath holds. And so they're very, very effective and give you a great training effect. And swimming, you can even get more than the others because of that extra body weight resistance, if you will. And so when you swim, you may want to breathe from the mouth, because if you breathe from the nose, you may inhale the water. But that's the only exception when I would say breathe from the mouth. From all the others, you would want to do nasal breathing due to its wide array of benefits that I already mentioned 2 videos ago. So please check that video out for all the benefits of nasal breathing. So definitely do nasal short breaths for recovery, unless you're swimming, because then you can inhale water, and you definitely don't want to do that. Okay? And so that's that. And over time, you can increase your strokes, for example, underwater, that you hold your breath for. If you breath hold in when swimming, from let's say 4 strokes to 6 strokes to 8 strokes, etc. Again, making sure that you recover enough, just like you did in the other workouts. Okay, and so that's the only difference. Walking, you would want to warm up for around a minute, but for jogging and running, you may need around 10 to 15 minutes to warm up. In both cases, you would want to hold your breath, right, until you experience maybe medium air hunger for the first 2 or 3, and then subsequent strong. And for subsequent reps, you want to around the strong air hunger, and you do this for around 8 to 10 times. The only difference is that when you walk, 15 seconds or 3 to 4 breaths may be enough to kind of recover, right? But when you run, that can be up to a minute. In both cases, you would want to breathe from the nose, or you can do it on a bike as well, where you warm up and then do let's say 5 to 15 pedals, right? So that'll be kind of like your warm up. Hold your breath for like, who knows, so you pedal, you'd warm up, and then you would hold your breath for around 5 to 15 pedals, and then you nasal breathe to recover for a minute, and repeat for 8 to 10 times. So there's so much variations of this, and it's amazing because you can literally get the training effect that you would get when you're doing high intensity interval training. So I hope you found this video helpful.